Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Jay Rants with another video post. This one is titled basically my experience with the Maschine 2.0 software and the Mark 1 controller. I want to shout out everybody that's been slamming videos up left and right. There's a lot of cats out there. I know machinetutorials.com has been really active. Fluxwithit.com has been active. So, really want to give y'all props for one, getting your hands on the Machine Studio as quickly as you did, and also putting up really high quality videos. I appreciate everything you guys put up. So, I've learned a lot, from so many guys out there, and I hope, I can return the favor as far as what I do with my videos. So, shout out to everybody who's definitely following and connecting with me like on Facebook and sending me comments and different things. I appreciate all the love that you all give me at this point. Um, so Machine 2.0 came out, and I can't front. I was a couple days late on finally getting around to purchasing it and installing it, mostly just because of work and some photography that caught up to me. I had a nice little photo shoot project um, with my creative team, so I was kind of caught up doing that and didn't have time to really get into the lab. So I actually had a chance to download and install the software late last night, and it would have been much sooner if my internet service didn't throttle me. So that's what I get for using clear internet service. But I found kind of a quick workaround. I went and actually unplugged my clear router and then plugged it back up, and all of a sudden I noticed that my connection, my download speed seemed to increase. So finally, late last night, I was able to get into Machine 2.0 software. There were a few things, and I'll talk about some of the challenges I ran into, and hopefully I'll be able to help some of you guys out who are making the transition to Machine 2.0. As everybody knows, I have the Mark 1 controller, and I think I've had it now for maybe 3 years. I think it's about 3 years, and I really enjoy using it. I feel just as comfortable on the Mark 1 controller as I do on my Motif XS. I feel like I can really maneuver around the control surface without really much reading anymore. It's mostly muscle memory as far as I'm concerned, and just kind of knowing where everything is. And I kind of have certain patterns that I repeat a lot of times, so it's really easy to get into the commands. So let me start with that actually. After downloading the 2.0 software, one of my big concerns was how much is going to change on the control surface, because if those of you who remember, the jump between like 1.5 and 1.7 actually was pretty drastic when Native Instruments kind of changed the way you navigate through the different menu structures on the controller. And for a little while, I actually rejected it. I actually went to using the mouse to manipulate everything on my screen, and that was until finally I just kind of made myself sit down and kind of go through the menu structure on the control surface. And then once I did that, I was good to go. In 1.8, it wasn't too much of a change. They just kind of added some additional features which were much welcome, such as the time stretch and all that good stuff. So this time out, I felt I was kind of concerned. I said, okay, I'm about to drop $100 on this, and I want to be sure that when I turn this thing on for the first time under the 2.0 software, that I'm not going to be totally lost and oblivious. And to my surprise, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I mean, there was a little bit of a learning curve, but honestly, I think most of my challenge came with getting familiar with the new user interface. So the screen itself, what I'm seeing on the computer screen, was a totally different experience for me. So I'll kind of talk about that a little bit, and I'll show you all my screen capture so you can kind of see some of the new things that probably will throw you for a curve. It definitely messed me up late last night, and I finally kind of worked around. So my initial impressions of the 2.0 update, I must admit I am really pleased with several things. One, I actually think the change in the color scheme is everything's got this gray look to it, but it seems to be a more neutral gray, and it seems to be more relaxing on the eyes. I didn't feel as much eye fatigue. And coming from a photographer, I stare at my screen all the time, and I'm always looking at, color corrections and making all kinds of adjustments to my images. So I spend a lot of time looking at my screen, and I'm always mindful of eye strain. And when I opened up the interface, you know, everything has a gray or a grayscale look to it, and it actually is a little bit easier on the eyes. I think they kind of went away from that really bright white text that they use like in the menu systems. Like on the old browser, it had that white background as you were scrolling through, and I think that contrast would kind of mess with your eyes over time and really have you struggling. And I also noticed too that I hope that because of the shift more to a grayscale, you don't see your image get burned into your monitor, especially like if you have like an older iMac like I do. I think mine is like a 2009 iMac or something like that, maybe a 2010. It was well before they went to the higher resolution displays. And one thing I noticed was if you leave it up for a long time, you'll notice the image will get, you know, kind of ghost into your LCD. So you have to, you know, go to some other apps, turn on your screensaver, or just turn the machine off until you're, you know, given enough time to kind of, I guess, refresh itself. So that's what I'm looking forward to, especially, you know, since I do spend a lot of time in Maschine when I'm actually working on music. So hopefully that'll be something I notice that's different. So let me kind of get into the nuts and bolts of my experience here. So let me go ahead and pull up my screen share, and I will let y'all see what I see. All right. So as you can see, the software is you know, it's all too familiar as far as kind of the basics are concerned. There's nothing here that's too surprising as far as being different, so to speak. Let me just move some things around here. So all right, so starting off, I mean, everybody knows where the arranger is, and you know, you also have your pattern window, which I kind of like it a little bit more like this. I like the squares. They're a little bit larger as far as the default grid is concerned. And then as you go through and change the grid sizes, you should be able to. I guess not. I believe if I'm zoomed in, I can actually see the squares change. But you know, that was something that stood out to me, was just the way everything looks when you first open it up. Let's see. Let me try switching over my grid now, and oh, I guess it doesn't. So I was thinking that it actually allowed me to see a different grid appearance, but it doesn't. So I have to figure out why it's not doing that. It's probably something I'm doing. But needless to say, you know, same familiar layout. The browser window has definitely changed up, which I don't know how I feel about this just yet. I think that it looks like they've simplified some of the subcategories just a little bit. So I noticed it more so when I was looking for my own my expansion packs, and I was looking for a pack that I purchased. It was kind of hard to find it at first, but then once I kind of got familiar with things, I said, okay, I know where it is now. So anyway, I do like that it's kind of broken up the banks. So if you had any previous version of Maschine, you got the 1.8 library that you can access real quick if you had your favorite instruments or sounds in there. And then you can also access the 2.0 library, and there's actually a lot of new kits in there, which I was pleasantly surprised by that. I felt like you know, a lot of the older kits, I was just kind of getting bored with them. I felt like the drums had a dated sound to them, you know, so it felt like you know, an older drum machine, or like, you know, maybe there was sounds off of like an old Roland Phantom or something like that. So I was really pleased to see that Native Instruments took time to really reshape the drum kits and you know, give us some fresh new sounds and a bunch of new one shots that are included in a lot of the drum kits. That was a pleasant surprise as well. So as I'm kind of looking through here, you know, these are the urban kits that came with the 2.0 update, and I mean, I'm not gonna count this all out, but at first glance, it looks to be about 35 to 40 new kits in here. And then you still have your old 1.8 kits, which gives you about the same thing. So you know, this is just me looking in the urban, under the urban category. So if I go to look, show all, and I'm under urban, I mean, this kind of gives you an idea. You know, you got a lot of new stuff in here. There's probably 80 kits total over here in the urban section. You know, so you go and do the math as I'm kind of going through here. You can kind of see how, like in the analog kit section, you know, there's a lot of drum kits there as well. Some of those are repeats because I see the 808 Southern kit in here. So, you know, you got to spend a little time. And actually, no, it's not a repeat. That's just where I had the two combined. So let me go to the 2.0. So here we go. So 2.0 library, you know, 1, 2, 3, you know, it's like about 10 new kits in here. Digital kit, same thing. Drum synth. And that's kind of cool too that they, the drum synth. I spent some time with it last night and was having a good time. I made my own version of my own 808 kick drum in there, and that was pretty. It was pretty easy to do it. So I'll actually kind of show you all that here in a second when I get deeper into the video. But that's pretty much the basics of the new software. Now, where it gets interesting, my biggest reason for wanting to make this purchase was the mixer. I was tired of having to go outside of Maschine to really get a good tight mix on things, and in particular, monitoring my levels. So let me kind of show you what I've done here. I actually I sampled something real quick. I think I sampled like a Curtis Mayfield record, and this isn't going to be, I'm not focused on sound quality here. You might barely, based on how my mic's positioned, you might not even really hear the music, but I want you to be able to see the music. So this is just a quick visual of what the mixer looks like when it's in action. All right, so as you can see, this is the mixer set to the drum kit. And what's really nice about it is for the first time you can actually, if you look over here to the right, you can actually see kind of the master for each group, which is really nice. Or actually the master, yeah, for each group. So I'm in group C1 right now, and or group C, and it just it lets me see that I'm clipping just a little bit, and it's kind of nice to be able to not just use my ears but to use my eyes some and try to figure out, okay, where do I want to prioritize my mix. So I could either do something like throw a compressor on the entire group or a limiter, or I could just go through and use my ears and use my eyes and try to adjust the levels to keep myself from going over that zero threshold. Okay, so right now I just did a quick adjustment on the kick drum, and the mix is nice and it's not clipping based on the visual feedback I'm getting off of the master, the group level meter. So that's really nice. Let me go and look at the next group where I have my sample, and you can kind of see where I'm just kind of triggering along here and just doing a little something funky with the sample. But again, I can see the levels, and if I need to do something to the group, I can apply an effect to the entire group. And let's give it a shot and see what happens. So let's see here. I just pulled up the sampler on accident. Well, I'll do it some other times. Like I said, I'm still getting familiar with everything, so not perfect. But that was kind of a quick visual of what the mixer looks like in action. Now, one thing unless somebody else out there knows something I don't know, I was not able to, so far, I'm not able to actually access the mixer from the control surface. I haven't found a shortcut or a combination of button presses to make that happen. But considering that I've got the MK1 controller, I don't feel too bad about that. I knew what I was getting into. I knew that the support would definitely be lean towards the Maschine Studio, which is perfectly fine. As long as I know I can grab the mouse and click up here and see a mixer for the first time and actually have some visual feedback on what I'm doing, that's all I'm concerned with. Like I could really care less about having a button on the controller that I can press in order to do something that I can just look at my computer screen and basically do. So yeah, so I'm really pleased with that. The overall appearance is much improved as far as I'm concerned. Let's see what else jumped out to me as I was working through here. I also like the way you add on additional plugins and effects. I mean, basically you just go over here and hit the plus tab, and it automatically pulls up your mini browser window right here, or pulls up a floating window. I'm sorry. You can also still access everything from the control surface as well, and it's very similar to the the 1.8 access on the controller, whether it was the Mark II or the Mark I controller. So you've got all your native instruments plugins here. Then I've got my own personal plugins that I've acquired over time, and I got a full robust list of all that stuff. Then you can go in and throw the compressor in. You got all the different Maschine effects that are already in here. So let me do this real quick. I'm gonna kind of show you guys the drum synth just a little bit so you can take a quick look at that. So simply all you have to do is just go to the little plus button over here on whichever sound or channel you want to use it on. and you just simply go and select, where is it at? Oh, I don't see it here. Well, how did that happen? So let me tell you about something else I just recently discovered, and I believe the reason why I don't see the drum creator is because I actually have to run my machine in 32-bit mode, which is something that messed me up when I first downloaded everything. As everybody knows, it can operate on a 64-bit or a 32-bit system. But what's not commonly known is that if you have 32-bit plugins, they won't show up if you're running machine in 64-bit mode. It'll only pull audio units or VSTs that are running in 64-bit. So I've actually had to go in and tell Machine, hey, I want you to run only in 32-bit mode so that I can actually access all of my Waves plugins and some other plugins that I've got. So as I'm looking at it now, I'm actually in 32-bit mode, and it appears that my some of the Native Instruments plugins are not going to be visible. And let me see if that holds true when I go and look at some of the new instruments they've given us. So I see the Mark 1 Scarby piano in here, so everything appears to still be present here. But let me go ahead and try opening this up and see if it, yep, it said it could not load the plugin. Primarily, I guess it's because the plugin is a 64-bit plugin. So that's something that you might want to pay close attention to if you got a bunch of 32-bit plugins. You've got them and you don't have a way to upgrade them to 64, that you may find yourself jumping in and out of 64-bit mode manually to be able to access these plugins. So that's kind of a downer, and I realized it actually this morning when I was, or late last night, I realized that what was happening, and I decided to go back and run it in 32-bit mode. And if I'm not mistaken, I was running 1.8 in 32-bit mode as well, which is why I didn't have this problem previously. So so that was kind of annoying, and it's kind of a downer if you have old plugins you're trying to use. But let me go ahead and I'm just going to close this out, and what I'll do is I'll actually open it up in 64-bit mode real quick, so you can all kind of still get to see what that looks like. So just give me a second here to get this thing all, get it loaded up here. So other than the 64-bit versus 32-bit challenge that I ran into, something else that I ran into is that after I did the installation, all of my old samples, so everything that I had sampled up until last night, did not automatically import itself into Machine in the 2.0. And at first I was really bugging. I was like, no, I hope I didn't just lose everything that I've been working hard on all this time. And then I realized that I just needed to go and basically import my old samples. So if you're using if you've had any previous version of Machine, you know that anytime you sample, you can either tell it, you can establish your own destination folder, or you can use Machine's folder that by default that it uses. And so what ended up happening, I ended up everything was in the 1.8 folder that Machine creates on its own, and so I ended up having to go into that folder and from Machine 2.0 and basically just import the sounds. And the nice thing about it was once I imported my samples, and I'll show you where I went and how I actually did it. Let me do a screen share again so you can follow with me, because I actually just reopened everything. I ended up having to go to Preferences and go to File then Preferences, excuse me. And I went to Library, and basically over here in my user library, I had to tell Machine where to go in order, and I had to send it basically to my old Machine 1.8 folder and import it from there. So when I double click this, you'll see where I have all my old, well, you can't see it because of the way I'm doing my screen share. So let me try this again so y'all can see exactly what I see. All right, so let's bust that out and show y'all my desktop here. All right, so let's back up so you can follow me. All right, one more time. Okay, so I went to went to File, Preferences. I mean, machine users know where to go to do this. And then inside the library, I had to go and create a user folder where, and basically I had to go and treat my old machine folder. And as you see right here, this is the original machine 1, version 1 or 1.8 folder that was created, and it's got all your projects in it. It had all my recordings in it. So I basically had to tell machine, this is where I want you to go to pull up all my samples. And as you can see here, I've got all kinds of stuff that I've sampled, over the last year or so. So I had to do that. And once I did it, the nice thing was it also included all my tags. So I did not have to go back and re-tag everything, which was something I was really, really concerned about when I realized that I was going to need to actually go in and import the new sounds now, or the old samples, excuse me. Now, the other thing that I noticed upon installing everything was that my projects did not show up. So that was also that made my heart skip a beat, because I'm thinking to myself, like, man, I've got all this work I've done on all these files, and I'm looking forward to bringing them over to Maschine 2.0 so that I can start mixing them a little bit better, and I can see my levels for the first time. I've got better plugins and better effects. You have to excuse me, my dog's over here shaking out. I don't know why, but anyway, so when I opened up the projects section of the software, this thing was completely blank. So everything you see over here was totally blanked out, and my heart skipped a beat, because I'm thinking, like, man, now I gotta figure out, I gotta go back and use Maschine 1.8 in order to work on these old files. How do I get them into 2.0? So I started messing around in the menus, and I noticed that as soon as I went over here and hit the drop down and selected File, that there is an option to import Maschine 1 period X format. So basically you can import your old machine projects. And so what I did, I went through, selected import, and then it took me to my area where I basically had all my old previous Maschine 1.8 tracks or whatever, and then I basically just selected the folder and went and let's see, I went to patterns. Oh, I'm sorry, not patterns, projects. When I went to projects, it showed everything that I had done previously all through here. So I just chose that, and then I selected it, and it took a couple of minutes, but Maschine basically converted everything to the 2.0, I guess, format, and nothing seemed different. I didn't lose track of any samples. It wasn't. It's for those of you who use FL Studio, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Whenever you go between versions, sometimes you end up losing your you end up losing your drum samples. You have to search around the computer and have to manually point everything back to FL Studio and back to those projects. So I was really happy that Native Instruments did not throw us like that, throw a curveball at us like that, and force us into a situation where we got to go back and look at all of our projects. Because me, I've got probably 100 projects on here, but I know for the hardcore producers out there, you guys may have, you might do 100 projects in 3 or 4 months. So it could have been really painful if that would have happened. So fortunately, they allowed the import process to include all the tags that you originally had, all of the drum samples, because again, Maschine does not get rid of the drum samples whenever it updates itself. Whenever you update the software, what it does is it just basically categorizes it by the 1.0 or 2, or I'm sorry, yeah, 1.0 or 1.8 version, and then you see another category for your 2.0 stuff. So so that was really nice that they did not hurt us like that, because I would have definitely been upset if that would have happened. So other than that, it's so far everything seems to be pretty good. I noticed that it was a little bit hiccupy when I was sampling, and once I kind of zoomed in onto the sample when I was working with that last track that I was kind of showing you all, I noticed that it seemed to be a little bit smoother. So I don't know if they've set it to where it kind of attempts to snap to the transients or to the waveform as you're kind of going through it. Not really sure if it's doing that or not, but that's something else that I observed that was kind of weird at first, and maybe there'll be an update that kind of smooths that out. I remember when I first updated to 1.8 a year ago, I remember doing a video and talking about how the encoders were really jacked up when you were trying to adjust your when you were in sampling mode and you were just trying to adjust your start and end point in your sample. So anyway, so that's one little hiccup that I noticed. But let me show you guys the drum synth real quick, since I told you I was going to kind of show you that. So what I've done, let's see, it should let me do it now. Let's see, let me do a screen share again so you can follow along, and I'll just do it like this so you can see everything that happens on my screen. So let me just start I'm already in a new project. Let me just start a new one just to be sure that I got a clean slate. So you go over here to the little plus button, and you just go to drum synth, and you can select, you got different options for what kind of synth you want to use. All right, so I'm just gonna pick the kick for right now, and you probably won't be able to hear this, but you know, this will kind of give you an idea of how this whole thing works. Okay, so let me go to the mix view so that way you can actually see the plugin. That's another thing too. Your plugins, you can make them visible from the arranger and pattern screen, and I'll kind of demonstrate real quick here. I'll just go to sound 2, and I'm just going to load up one of let's see, I'll load up massive. Okay, that way I know it's going to work. So loading up massive, and it's going to take its own sweet time. And at first, when I first loaded this up, I was like, well, this sucks. You know, I can't actually see the plugin. If I want to go in and make any changes, I can't do that. So right over here, there is a little arrow, and it's kind of pointing up. It's like it's pointing northeast. It's a little northeast pointing arrow. If you click that, that allows you to see the floating window. Okay, but again, it's floating, so it kind of, you know, it has that old FL Studio syndrome where it's in your face and you have to move it over here to work and then move it back when you're wanting to go to another side of the screen. So let me show you a nice little feature. So if you go back up here and hit the mixer option, now you should be able to oh, wait a second. For some reason, it is not letting me see massive all of a sudden. Okay, I don't know why that is happening. It's the first time running into that, so I guess we're gonna learn together today, huh? But anyway, if everything was functioning properly, you should actually see the massive plugin right here. And I'll try it again to see if there's something I'm doing wrong. So I'll just retrace my steps. I'm just gonna reset this group real quick, and I'm gonna try adding massive again. So go to native instruments, go to massive, and go to the mixer. It's still not doing it. I'm not sure why. Okay, but I do know that it is going to show it for the drum synth. I wonder if it's because maybe I still started in 32-bit mode. That's a possibility. I didn't get a chance to change it for the sake of this video. But as you can see, you know, the drum synth is now up, and you really can't hear anything because it's probably set to yeah, it's not giving me sound. I believe it's because I'm still in 32-bit mode. But anyway, so the idea is that you can actually see the drum synth, and you have all the different options available to you if you want to change the dynamic sound of the drums. And like I said, it was pretty easy to go in and make like an 808 kick, or make like a vinyl sounding drum kick. I mean, or an acoustic drum. I mean, it was pretty effortless actually. And I had a really good time doing it. You know, only a few knobs that I had to really worry about, and the drums sound nice and tight and nice and clean, and you can make them sound dirty. I mean, and that was just me using the drum synth without actually adding any effects behind it. I think I did throw a compressor on it just in one of my little test projects just to see how it sounded. But overall, I was really pleased with the quality of the drum sounds. It really did sounded really good. So the next thing I want to talk about is, you know, kind of want to get away from what I'm seeing on the screen and focus a little bit more on what I'm seeing on the control surface. All right. So what I've done, I did some quick and dirty video with my Android phone, so you all can kind of see what the video looks like, what my control surface looks like. So let me switch over to that real quick and press play so that you guys can actually see a quick snippet of something. So one of the things that I noticed was when I first got in here, you can see on my mouse here, you see like kind of a subheading that says projects, and you see product down here. I'm sorry, a heading, then a subheading. And when I first saw this, I couldn't figure out how to navigate. I wasn't sure how to cycle through and basically access all of the different, whether I want to use a group, a sample, an effect, or just look for a waveform. I was having the hardest time trying to figure out how to manipulate that from the controller. So I realized that the two arrow buttons, I'm not the arrow buttons. I was only using the two arrow buttons, and I wasn't really getting where I wanted to be. And so I realized that what Native Instruments has done is, in this change up on the left screen, your first and second programmable button actually operate or act like a left and right cursor. So I'm just going to run the video so you can kind of see what I'm talking about here. Again, it took me a second to figure this out, but if you use the two large arrow buttons, it manipulates that smaller window, and then the two programmable buttons or assignable buttons actually manipulate the top heading. And what that does is it allows you to basically have two types of cursors, basically, or two types of controllers on the machine. So when you're on the controller, you can actually use the top arrows or the two top buttons to cycle through whether you're wanting to look at a project, whether you're trying to go for your drum kits, or whatever the case. And then once you go into the bottom two arrows, that's where you start to manipulate the actual browser so that you can start going through all your different effects, your drum kits, for me, my sample library, and then at that point, everything still kind of feels like the machine of old. And as you can see, in this video here, I've made it into my subgroup for my drum kits. So I'm just kind of going through them, and eventually I'll probably make a selection or something like that and load it up. And that's all we have to do. So yeah, so it took me a second to understand what was happening there, and I'm not gonna lie to you, it blew me away at first. I was a little bit disturbed by that because it wasn't, they didn't send any additional documentation out about how to navigate, or at least I didn't see anything. I mean, there was a PDF that came with the software installation, and that was only for the setup. It wasn't, how to manipulate the new changes in Maschine, especially if you have a Mark 1 or even a Mark 2 controller. So I do like the new structure as far as the visuals. A lot more seems to be happening on the left LCD versus the right LCD, which is fine. I mean, even the navigation, when you hit the navigation pad, it used to be the left screen adjusted any settings dealing with the arranger, and the right screen, when you're holding down navigation, only affected the pattern portion of the window. Well, now what they've done is they've consolidated that into the left screen, so that the right screen gives you additional information. So you can actually see like what effects are being run on the different respective channels that you're looking at while you're still in the navigation screen. So that's kind of cool. You can see what plugins are running, and there's some other options. I haven't even gotten into those yet. So with that being said, I was really pleased with the fact that there was there's still a lot of functionality that I feel like I have with the Mark 1 controller with the 2.0 software. I was not disappointed. It was a bit disappointing to see that when you go into the mixer screen, which I suspected anyway, that you cannot see the metering on the LCD screens. You have to look at your computer screen for that. It's kind of disappointing. It would have been nice to be able to pull up the mixer, look down on your LCD, see the meters jumping, and then just hit a knob beneath it and make your adjustment to increase or decrease your levels or whatever. But again, that is a small gripe that I have, because again, I'm just going to look right up at the computer screen, and you can still essentially have that same functionality. You just hold down whichever pad you want to adjust as far as the output level, and you make your adjustment with the volume knob, which is something that we've all been doing for the longest with the Mark 1 and even the Mark 2 controller. So it's it's not, you still get the tactile response. It's still easy enough to do. I guess I just have to get in the habit of just getting my button presses down and getting my flow on the controller in order to really use it the way that I originally envisioned using it when I saw that they were including an actual mixer and the meters in the new software. So like I said, that's a small gripe of mine. It's I don't even really want to call it a gripe. It was just something I had hoped for, and it didn't happen. It's kind of like, when you try to ask the finest girl to prom, and she tells you no. You still going to prom, just go with somebody else. You're just not taking the finest girl. Now, I personally never had that problem, but I'm just saying, for those of you out there who have been rejected like that, that's kind of how this feels. It's like, oh, I was hoping that I was going to get right on the controller, and now I'm not with that situation, but I'm going to go get this other chick and, make it work. Anyway, so all in all, the 2.0 software so far has been pleasant. It's been a pleasant surprise. It's been good so far. My disappointments are consistent with everyone else's. There's still no real time stretch. Be nice to have that. Akai's had it for quite some time now. So I think that's the only thing that's missing, in my opinion, as far as the software is concerned. I think that's about it. I really like the changes to the interface. There's a lot more that I feel when you're looking at the user interface. I feel like there's a lot more at my fingertips, as opposed to feeling like it's just not always right in front of me. And that's what I sometimes would feel when I was working with Maschine in the past. Is like you just felt like there was something that just was not present and sitting in front of you. And I don't know. Maybe it was just me thinking about things too much, but I do like the fact that I don't have to search for I don't have to right click to add a plugin or a VST at this point, or an audio unit. It's right there in front of me. I like that when I'm in the sampling menu, I can actually still go in and manipulate. Come on, sampling menu. Come on. All right, I can actually still go in here and adjust certain parts of some of the effects on here, as far as the tune and decay of the actual sample. Like while I'm actually working on it, I noticed that earlier when I was messing with the sample earlier, I could tell if I wanted to be an ADSR or if I wanted to be a one shot while I was still in this primary screen. I didn't have to go to the controller and make any changes. It was right there in front of me. Maybe it was present on 1.8 and I just never paid attention to it while I was in the sampling edit screen, but that was something that was really welcome as well when I saw that. Something that messed me up this morning when I came in here and hooked up the record player, by default, and I need to figure out how to change this, down at the bottom of the screen when you are working with your samples, you got your input and everything set up correctly, and I had everything going. I hit play on the record player and I got no audio, but I had to turn on the monitor button. So make sure that you do have that turned on. There's probably a way to set a default template that always has that turned on. So far I haven't had enough time to really fight with it to make that happen, but that was again something else. So if you're sampling and you're looking to get started on something, go ahead and make sure you turn on the monitoring so that it doesn't confuse you or make you think something is wrong with your cabling. Only other thing that I noticed is that Maschine 1.8 still exists on my computer, and so basically there's two separate installations of Maschine on my computer. I've got 1.8 and I've got 2.0. When I first installed 2.0 and hit my icon down here at the bottom of the screen, it opened up Maschine 1.8, and I was just like, man, what in the world is going on? And then finally it clicked, and I was like, yeah, I got to go and throw this one out of my dock and go grab Maschine 2.0. So I ended up going and navigating my applications folder, and I found Maschine 2 and stuck it in my dock. So with that being said, I'm going to caution you, do not uninstall 1.8. And the reason why is because all your project folders or your project files are going to be inside. You definitely don't want to do that. Maschine 2.0 is not going to automatically import all of your projects. So do not delete 1.8 or any previous version that you've been working on projects in, because all your stuff will be gone. It'll just be gone. You'll be done. You'll be sick, and I don't want that to happen. All right. So don't delete 1.8 until you are, I mean, unless you are just certain that you've gotten everything out of it that you want to get. You've gotten all of your plugins, all of your groups, your presets, anything you've customized. If you are not pressed for storage space on your computer, my recommendation is just leave it alone. Don't even touch it. Just leave it be, because you don't want to run the risk of getting rid of something and all of a sudden, 3 months later, you go and try to access the file on 2.0 and you can't pull it up because you just deleted, your 1.8 or whatever. So right now I probably won't make any changes because I got plenty of space left on my computer. So it's not killing me to have it in there, and actually it did save me, because had I uninstalled it before, it's possible I would have lost my project files and I would have just been hurt. I wouldn't have been too bad off because I have a bunch of backup drives, and I would have just gone and used I would have just used my recovery, my time capsule drive on my Mac, and I would have just pulled it all back in. But hey, I've got that, but the next person might not. So, you might really be sick if you were to do that. Other than that, there's really no other real surprises so far. But I'll keep playing with the software and keep fighting with it. I think, I guess the only downer again is that 64-bit versus 32-bit issue if you're running 32-bit plugins. So that's something that I gotta make some decisions on. I did notice that there are a lot of great plugins, and when it's in 64-bit mode, that still loaded up for me. So I may just end up running 64-bit majority of the time, and then if I really want to use some of those older Waves plugins that I have, then I'll just export it out and maybe take it to Ableton or Pro Tools or something like that, and just run my plugins there, because both of those DAWs support my both versions of those plugins. So that's probably what I'll end up doing, so that I can really benefit from the memory management and the speed of the update, and just go from there. So with that being said, I hope that this long video was informative. I don't think anybody asked me any questions over here in my chat window, which is perfectly fine. I hope that this helps out. I will continue to make more videos kind of representing the folks that have version 2.0 software with either the with either the Mark 1 or the Mark 2 controller, because we're not left behind. After running everything, taking a look at it, we are gonna be okay. Like we're not struggling. We're not losing much functionality at all. I mean, I feel the same with this controller as I have in the past. I mean, I don't seem to be impeded at all by the changes. It just took me a second to kind of see how Native Instruments restructured the use of the LCD screens. And the reality is that in 8 months they'll be releasing something else, an update or something, and that's going to change how we use Maschine again. I'm just thankful that they have not abandoned the technology, that they're still supporting Mark 1 and Mark 2 controllers, and even the microcontrollers. I'm happy that they're still supporting all of their previous products, and that was one of the reasons why I bought the Maschine, was because when I realized how everything with Native Instruments is done in-house, and that they're making the software to be a perfect marriage with the hardware, I thought to myself, that's a very forward-thinking approach, and they're going to obviously continue to support this thing and update it. Similar to when I first laid eyes on the iPhone, I said, wow, a phone with a flat screen surface means that your phone will never fully be obsolete. You just download new software applications, and now your phone can have new functions, and next thing I know, that's what basically happened with Android or with iPhone. And I feel like Maschine is basically the same thing. I mean, yes, they're kind of locked in a little bit because there are physical elements, to this control surface that cannot be changed, and that's understandable. But as long as they stick with the formula of always acknowledging that there are a certain number of buttons or knobs, and that things can be, rearranged and reassigned to those knobs and buttons, I don't foresee them change. I don't foresee this this product line tanking because they've abandoned it at some point, unless they decided they want to put 3 LCD screens on the control surface, or they want to do one big LCD, or they decide to add some feature that just simply changes, gives the whole control surface a facelift. So, that being said, definitely I encourage anybody out there that's watching the video to go out, pick up the 2.0 software. It is, in my opinion, it is definitely well worth the investment, even if you just want it for the additional drum kits and the drum synth. Like I said, the drum synth last night I had it knocking. It was sounding really nice with the drum synth, and I'm looking forward to the future of expansion packs with Maschine, because now with the drum synth, they can take a similar approach to doing their expansion packs as they have when they included Massive as a part of the Maschine default instruments. Is that now you don't have to go out and just rely only on sampled instruments or using different effects chains. They can actually go in and just send out a ton of presets. And I foresee them doing the exact same thing with the drum synth, where you're going to get a drum, you'll get an expansion pack and it's literally loaded up with all sorts of, tweaked out settings on the drum synth, and then you can start doing really cool things. I was happy to finally be able to play an 808 kick without having to worry about the pitch when I was going up and down, the octave scale. Like that was cool. Like I've been looking for that in Maschine for the longest. I was trying to make my own 808 kicks in Massive, and it was just ridiculous. I just hated doing it. Like I'm not a tweaker when it comes to sound engineering and that kind of thing. So I'm getting into it, but it's just frustrating, especially when I have something that I'm chasing, a sound that I'm hearing, and I want to get it out. So that was another good reason, another selling point for me, was to finally be able to work with the drum synth and have drum sounds that I can change the notes on and not have to worry about the sample being cut too short or playing too fast or whatever, or too slow. So that was cool. Get the 2.0 software. Keep supporting each other, and I'm out.